My name is Elise Monroe, and I never thought I'd return to the place I once called home. For years, I had built a life away from the sleepy Michigan town of Willow Creek, trading familiarity for anonymity and comfort for ambition. In the city, I thrived. I had a fulfilling career in publishing, an apartment filled with books and quiet, and friends who knew me for who I had become, not who I used to be. It had taken me years to become this version of myself. When I left Willow Creek, I left behind a mess of memories, heartaches, and an identity I had never fully understood. But in the city, I built a world that reflected who I was becoming. A world where I was known for my intellect, my drive, and the quiet strength I learned to wield in boardrooms and brainstorming sessions. I wasn't running away. I was running towards something that felt right. Then everything changed with a single text message. It came in the middle of an ordinary Thursday afternoon while I was sipping cold brew and editing the latest manuscript from a debut novelist. The screen lit up. "Come home. I need you. Mom." 5 words. They stopped time. I stared at the message, reading it over and over, waiting for it to change, or for a second message to follow. But nothing came. Just those 5 words, like a whisper from a past I had sealed off. It had been nearly a decade since I'd heard from her. The silence hadn't surprised me. After all, I'd left in anger, in pain, and without looking back. But those 5 words unlocked a box I'd buried deep within me. Despite every logical reason to ignore it, I packed a bag and drove 5 hours north, through landscapes that grew increasingly familiar and suffocating. The empty fields, the faded barns, the diner where we used to get milkshakes, they all came back to me, heavy with memories I didn't ask for. As I approached the house on Sycamore Lane, I was flooded with emotions: dread, hope, fear, and something else I couldn't name. The house hadn't changed much. The shutters were still peeling, the porch swing creaked in the wind, and the mailbox leaned to one side like it always had. Yet, it didn't feel like home. Not anymore. I sat in the car for 10 minutes before I could bring myself to get out. I stared at the cracked driveway, the flower beds overtaken by weeds, the wind chimes that clinked like faint bells of the past. My hands trembled as I turned the ignition off. My fingers hovered over the door handle. What was I doing here? But the question didn't matter. I was already here, and the only way out was through. The story I'm about to share isn't simple. It's about family, about the people who shape us and break us, and about the fragile, desperate search for recognition. It's about who we are when our reflection is denied by those who helped create it. This isn't just about coming home. It's about being seen, truly seen for the first time. The moment I stepped onto the porch, the front door opened. My father stood there, his eyes narrowed into something between suspicion and contempt. He was older now, greyer, more stooped, but the disapproval in his gaze hadn't aged a day. "Elise," I said softly. He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind him. "We don't have a daughter named Elise," he said. His voice was flat, mechanical. "You need to leave." I blinked, as if the sunlight had distorted his words. "Dad, please. Mum texted me. She asked me to come." He shook his head. "You're not welcome here." The door opened again, and my brother Mason appeared. He looked the same, tall, broad-shouldered, with that stubborn Monroe jaw. His eyes locked onto mine, and instead of warmth, I saw only calculation. "You heard him," Mason said. "You shouldn't have come." I took a step back, stunned. "Are you serious? This is still my home." "No," my father said coldly, "not anymore." The door shut with finality, leaving me alone on the porch with the past roaring in my ears. My hands trembled. I wanted to scream, to break something, to run. But I stood frozen, the word daughter echoing like a ghost they'd buried long ago. I didn't leave. I walked around the side of the house and sat on the back steps. The yard, though overgrown, was familiar. The oak tree where Mason and I had built a treehouse still stood, its ladder broken but sturdy enough to remind me of what we'd once shared. Eventually, the back door creaked open. My mother appeared, looking older and more fragile than I remembered. Her eyes softened when she saw me. "Elise," she whispered. I stood, heart pounding. "You texted me." She nodded. I didn't know they'd react like that. I followed her inside. It was like walking through a museum of a family I was no longer part of. My photos were gone from the walls, my trophies, my art, my books. All vanished. I felt like a ghost. Later, I noticed Mason's keyring on the kitchen counter. My old purple sunflower keychain dangled from it. I picked it up. "Why does Mason have this?" I asked. My mother looked away. "He took it after you left." I opened a drawer. Inside were birthday cards, unopened letters, things I had sent over the years. My handwriting stared back at me. "They were never returned," I said. "I kept them," she said quietly. I read them all. That night, I found a file in my father's desk. Forged documents, Mason's handwriting, suggesting plans to sell the house. My name had been erased legally. It was as if I never existed. I confronted them the next morning. "You're selling the house without me? You forged my name." Mason didn't deny it. "You left. You don't belong here anymore." "It's still mine," I said, "and I'm not leaving." I laid down my terms. Mason had to leave. My parents could stay, but under a new lease agreement with my legal protection. I wasn't just reclaiming my place. I was reclaiming my worth. My father refused to speak, but my mother did. She touched my hand and whispered, "I'm sorry. It wasn't everything, but it was something." Mason packed up and left that evening. As the door closed behind him, silence settled in. My mother and I sat together on the porch, watching the stars come out. She rested her hand on mine and didn't let go. That night, I stayed. We didn't talk much, but it was enough. The next morning, I made breakfast. My mother joined me. Even my father sat at the table, silent but present. "I think we can fix it," my mother said. I nodded. "One step at a time." As I left that afternoon, I felt lighter. I didn't know what the future held, but I had faced my past. I had stood my ground. I drove back to the city with the windows down, letting the wind carry away the remnants of the past like autumn leaves drifting from a tree. The air was cool, laced with the scent of changing seasons, crisp, a little bitter, but alive. My suitcase was in the back seat, along with a small box of things my mother had insisted I take. A few photos, an old journal, and a plastic bag containing the purple sunflower keychain. It rested on the passenger seat beside me, a quiet companion on the drive home. I glanced at it often, not because it was beautiful or rare, but because it reminded me of who I had been and who I was still becoming. A symbol, not just of memory, but of endurance. Something I once held dear, then forgotten, now reclaimed. Returning to Willow Creek had been like opening an old wound, but in doing so, I found more than pain. I found truth. I found that love can take strange forms, that rejection doesn't always stem from hatred. Sometimes it grows from fear, and that forgiveness is less about excusing the past and more about choosing peace in the present. My mother's voice echoed in my mind. "We can fix it, can't we?" I had answered yes, and I had meant it. But fixing doesn't always look like rebuilding. Sometimes it means holding the broken pieces in your hands and honouring what they once were. Sometimes it's about accepting the cracks and living with them. I still don't know what comes next, I don't know if my father will ever fully see me. I don't know if my mother will always remember me, but I know I won't hide who I am anymore. I won't diminish myself to fit the outlines others draw for me. I have carved out a space in the world that is mine, and no one, no silence, no lie, no rejection can take that from me. At a red light on the edge of the city, I reached for the keychain and turned it over in my hand. It caught the sunlight just a little, a dull glint, like a buried memory surfacing. I smiled. In the rearview mirror, the highway stretched behind me like a ribbon of everything I'd overcome. Ahead, the skyline came into view, tall and sprawling and unknown. A life was waiting there, a life that still had room for healing, for love, for me. Family is complicated, identity is fragile, recognition is a fight. But I had made it. I had faced them, and I had stayed. The rest would come in time, and I was ready.